It is interesting that me and my siblings have all gotten into the arts, even though both my parents were lawyers. A lot of that had to do with the fact that my grandfather was a big patron of the arts in Chicago, and he supported the Lyric Opera of Chicago quite greatly. And I grew up sort of backstage at the opera, and he used to have all the cast parties at his house. So I grew up around a lot of opera singers. And then when I was in middle school, they somehow convinced me, even though I was a very shy child, to be an extra at the opera, what's also known as called a supernumerary. And so I was skinny enough to fit in the costume, and so that started my sort of acting career because I fell in love with being backstage at the opera, which is a pretty magical place. When I first came to Los Angeles, even though I had all this theater experience behind me, I wasn't quite up to speed with what was happening in Los Angeles in terms of voice acting, and I certainly needed a mentor, and Richard Horvitz turned out to be a fantastic mentor for me. He really helped me understand many things about acting and voice acting as well, what it took to sort of be a successful artist in this market, both in terms of my artistry and in terms of my sanity. So I'm deeply indebted to Richard. In fact, I do an entire podcast on voice acting at a website called voiceactingmastery.com. You can find it on iTunes and on the web. And I've recently been interviewing Richard on my podcast, which has been a wonderful experience to go back now and talk to him in more detail about what it takes to work as a professional artist.
Of course you did. They are exceptional.
I like to study mythology in terms of its application to storytelling. And it is my firm belief that we become the stories we tell ourselves. My job is to come in and give people the conscious tools to understand why these stories are so compelling to them, why certain storytelling patterns happen all the time, why Americans tend to write about superheroes and the Japanese tend to write about giant robots, and explain the religious influences on these storytelling traditions. If you want to become the authority for your own life, it is good to author it, to be able to write your own story the way that you like it. So I know exactly how far away I am from the person I'm talking to. I know exactly how loud the explosions are. I know exactly what music is playing underneath my performance.